Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Sports Guy Talk here in the flesh. No longer do you just see my mug in the back. Kid just hit her head. That's awesome. I've probably made about 6 videos up at this point, so I am just going to roll the dice. There could be a crow hitting the window. There could be demolition outside. I would probably still let that noise happen in the background. So anyway, not getting carried away. So you probably see me, like I said, through my reflection, or I've also appeared in videos with Mama Bro and a Mukbang Bro, and I gotta give them both a shout out for helping me get a little more viewers. So thank you guys. I'm very much grateful to have you supporting me and have you in my life as well. So I just want to give them a shout out. So my plan right now is to go over all the teams thus far after the 50 game mark. Now I'm very much aware that each team has played over 50 games by the time this video is uploaded. But my goal right now is to have it in segments. So in my next video, it'll be after 60 games, 70 games, and at the end of the 82 game season, I'll have another video at the end of the year to basically say where everyone's at, playoffs, no playoffs, standings, all that other jazz. And then obviously at the end of the season, that's when the playoffs start. So I plan on having a playoff bracket like I've had in the past, and giving my predictions of what teams I believe will be moving on, and et cetera, et cetera. And a big one for myself is the trades. So very upcoming soon, I want to have a video talk about all the trades that have happened thus far this season. And another video is going to be the trade deadline. I apologize. Like I've said, I've tried about 6 times to do these takes and something keeps screwing up. So I'm just going with the flow at this point. So I do apologize for not having clean content or not being organized. But yeah, the trade deadline is a big one for myself. So I'll plan on doing a review once all the trades are done and going from there. So getting back to the start of the video, I'm going to be like I said, I'm going to be reviewing all of the teams up until this point at the 50 game plateau. Starting with the Anaheim Ducks, they were 16, 29, and 5 with 37 points. A team in the Pacific Division, which is a very tough division, by the way. I don't see them making the postseason this year, which will make, I think, like 4 straight years in a row, I do believe, or maybe even 5 years in a row, which is crazy to think for a team that was in the playoffs basically every season up until I think it was 2018. After that, they just missed it. 2019, they didn't make it. 2020 didn't make it with the bubble. 2021, 2022, 2023. Yeah, so it's crazy to think they've been this long for the Anaheim Ducks and no playoff appearances. The next team will be the Arizona Coyotes. After the 50-game plateau, they were 16, 28, and 6 with 32 points. No, that can't be right. 32. This is the one team I did not do the full math on this. I apologize. So 16, that's 32. 38 points. 38 points they had up until the 50-game plateau. So 16, 28, and 6 was the record. Another team I can't see making the postseason, which is tough. For that organization, they have had such inconsistency for such a long time, whether it's management, didn't have the right players, goaltenders, whatever the case may be. I honestly feel kind of bad for them. And now they're playing in a smaller arena. I put the paperwork down just because I wanted to kind of like go on a little rant about the Coyote situation. But just the fact that they're in this predicament where they're playing with not a whole lot of fans and they're jumping from city to city just to try to keep the organization in that state. I don't know if it shows a lot about the ownership or the team itself, but you got to think at some point there's going to be some major changes. Now, maybe they do get a new arena and they stay in Arizona, but what has happened with so many teams in the past where they've struggled to keep supporting the team in that state or province for that matter, and don't be surprised if a relocation comes soon. I mean, you can only stay in there for so long, but maybe Arizona's a hot market. I'm not 100% sure, but that's just my little rant for the Coyotes. So now moving on with the Boston Bruins, who are red hot this season, and at the 50-game plateau, they were 38, 7, and 5 with 60 points. It's hard to believe that for a team that struggled the last 2 seasons to even make it into a top 3 spot, it was kind of a strange thing because they were a top team obviously in the Atlantic for so many seasons, and now they're dominant once again. And the fact that doing it without Victor Tuukka Rask is just incredible because he was the backbone of that, I guess, defense. He didn't let a whole lot of pucks go behind him, but Allmark is playing out of his mind. And from a Habs fan, I have to take some I have to swallow a little bit of pride here, but I got to give props to the organization. They brought him over from Buffalo, and he's been outstanding ever since. So the Bruins, I can see you finishing definitely in the top spot. It'd be tough to really catch them if you're Toronto or Tampa, just in my opinion. So the next team is the Buffalo Sabres, and a team that is close, but not close enough. After the 50 game mark, they were 26, 20-4 with 56 points. Again, a team that I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but they're close enough to make it. So they're kind of stuck in the middle. Like, you almost feel that at this point of the season, you're either tanking or you're competing hard. And like I said, they have a slim chance, but if they miss the playoffs, then there goes a really decent draft pick because they're going to be at the middle of the peg there. So I do believe in the next season or two, they should compete for at least a wild card spot. But that Atlantic division, just like a lot of hockey divisions, is very tough to compete for. And obviously only 2 wild card spots between the 2 divisions is really tough to do. And it's 8 teams, I believe, in every division thus far. So Buffalo, I say probably on the outskirts when it comes to the postseason. But hey, they still have just under 30 games to play, so anything can happen. For the Calgary Flames, I think they had a lot of hope and a lot of faith coming into this season, especially after signing Nazem Kadri and after they got Jonathan Huberdeau and obviously Uyghur on the back end from Florida in that trade with Tkachuk. I think they had a lot of high expectations. They're still in a playoff spot as we speak. But at the 50-game mark, they were 24-17-9 with 57 points. Again, a team that should make the playoffs. But again, that division's really tight. And now that Seattle has taken a step forward, I believe they're even ahead of Calgary at this point. Is just going to show how tough it is to get back in that postseason. And for a team that won that division just a season ago, it just goes to show that you can't always be guaranteed to be heavy favorites or go back-to-back as division champs, because 82 games is certainly a long season. Carolina Hurricanes, they are top of their division in the Metropolitan. At the 50-game plateau, they were 33-9-8 with 74 points. A team I believe for this season, it has to be at least conference final or bust. I mean, getting out of the first round shouldn't be. If we get out of the first round, that's a succession or a successful season. I do apologize for the many hiccups that I have. But yeah, for Hurricanes, you got to feel that either conference final or Stanley Cup or bust, because the last 2 seasons, postseasons, they've been in the divisional. I'm just got football mixed up with me, but they've been in the semifinals, but they haven't been able to get out of that second round. And after they made that incredible run in 2019, I feel that like their window isn't really shut. But like, how many more years can you keep this consistent with so many other good teams in that division? For this year, in my opinion, it has to be, like I said, cup or bust or conference final or bust. Just getting out of the first round shouldn't be acceptable, and just getting to the second round shouldn't be acceptable. That's just my opinion. Chicago Blackhawks are definitely on a downward spiral, and with potential trade bait with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, I believe this team is definitely in a full rebuild. And those 2 veterans definitely want to get on the out, which is a shame because they're going to be obviously lifelong and forever long Blackhawks once they retire. But they don't want to be part of a team that's going to be at the bottom of the basement. Obviously, 2020, they got lucky with the COVID thing. They snuck into the postseason. Otherwise, it would have been at least 4 straight years when they missed the playoffs, because 2019, they didn't make it. 2020, they wouldn't have made it. 2021, and obviously last year, they didn't make it. So the fact they made it only once in the last 4 years is definitely going to show that they're on the downward side of a spiral. I guess there's no really upward side of a spiral, but hopefully you get my drift. So at the 50-game mark, they were 16-29-5, 37 points. Again, last team, they'll get a good draft pick, but where, like I said, those 2 superstars end up, they should get traded by the end of the season, but it's just a matter of where. The Colorado Avalanche were struggling for a little bit, but they definitely seem to have gotten their ish together. At the 50-game point, they were 27-19-4 with 58 points. Obviously, as I've said previously, that they probably have more points by the time I upload this video. But again, I'm just sticking with that X amount of game plateau moving forward. So I do believe they should make the playoffs. Obviously, the defending Stanley Cup champions. There's high hope for the Avalanche to potentially even go back-to-back. They got a really good team. But like I said, they've just struggled for a little bit. And to say they missed Kadri would be an understatement, because they definitely don't have anyone to replace. But just that's like with any team in any sport. You lose one guy, you're not guaranteed the next guy that's going to come in there is going to be able to fill that person's shoes. The Columbus Blue Jackets, a team that I don't know if I would say they had high expectations coming into this season, but obviously with the signing of Johnny Gaudreau from the Flames, they probably felt that they should have competed for at least a wild card spot, but unfortunately, they have not been able to get any consistency. They I believe, have the worst record in the entire NHL, which most likely will give them a good chance of getting Connor Bedard, but that's another topic for another day. But yeah, at the 50-game plateau, they only had 15 wins, 32 losses, and 3 overtime losses. If I'm reading that correctly. 5, 8. Yeah, that's right, for 34 points. So like I said, lasted in the NHL. So all they can really do now is just try to finish the season with a little bit of pride, and hopefully they land, like I said, the biggest up-and-coming kid with another Connor in the league. Let's put it that way. The Dallas Stars have definitely turned things around from a season ago. They obviously missed the playoffs last year. At the 50-game plateau, they were 28-13-9 with 65 points. They were first in the division. Now, it's going to be a battle between them and Winnipeg, I believe, for that division crown. And who knows, even if Colorado can get on a hot streak, maybe they can get back into that contention. But it's been either Dallas or Winnipeg in that division, but it's basically been dominating, which is hard to believe from both those teams who missed the season just this year ago, and how great they are, especially now they both have new coaches. I do believe, unless Dallas has the same one from last year. But I know that Winnipeg got Dallas's old coach, so he's obviously doing some good there. The Red Wings at the 50-game plateau, 22-20-8 with 52 points. And again, just like the Sabres, they're close. And I believe with each coming year, they're going to constantly be getting better. They're not at the bottom of the standing, so it's not like they're going to be bottoming out for a really decent draft pick. They legitimately have a chance. If they were to go on a tear this season and win the last X amount of games, they could potentially sneak into the playoffs, but I think that might be a little, I don't know, too soon to judge, I guess you could say. But yeah, if I had to predict, I think Detroit just misses the playoffs, but they're a very good team, very upcoming good team. I know I totally screwed that up, and I apologize. But I believe, like I said, in the next year or two, they should be easily competing for a wildcard spot at the minimum, because they have a really good team overall. And obviously, when you have Steve Yzerman, he's a genius, so you really can't go wrong when you have him at the helm. The Oilers at the 50-game plateau were 28-18-4 with 60 points. A team that should make the playoffs, definitely should finish in the top 3 at least. They were struggling there for a little bit, but they seem to have gotten their you-know-what together. And when you have the best player in the world, you really can't go wrong. And they finally seem to have gotten a goalie. Now, whether he stays hot with Jack Campbell for the rest of the season is hard to say. Obviously, he had a very inconsistent start to the season. I think they said that January was his best month of the year. So kudos to them. If Campbell, like I said, can stay consistent, they should make a run at the playoffs. It shouldn't just be getting in. It shouldn't just be getting into the first round. I think they should be able to compete to at least get into a conference final. Once again, it has to be their mindset. They made it there last year, so why not again this year? They have a really good team, just overall. So, like I said, they should make the postseason if I had to make my predictions. The Florida Panthers at the 50-game plateau were 23-21-6 with 52 points. A team that won the division last year, and I believe they won the division the year prior to that, or maybe they finished second and third. Yeah, that's when they played Tampa in the first round. Was the other COVID playoffs. But yeah, for a team that had just won the division just a season ago, there was a lot of high expectation. They got a lot of good players on the team. Obviously, that big trade getting Matthew Tkachuk from the Flames, that really helped them out. I mean, he has more points than Huberdeau and Weegar have combined, which is crazy to think, because you trade basically Huberdeau for Tkachuk. Both those teams should be pretty consistent with the points, but it hasn't been the case for the Flames. But kudos to the Florida for getting Tkachuk and really elevating his game. But again, a team, they should be able to compete for a playoff spot. There's no reason why they're out of it right now, but they're close. So I believe if they can go on a bit of a hot streak, get maybe 3 or 4 wins under their belt, they should be right back in the thick of things. So a team, I had to say right now, they really should make the playoffs. And then I could say a team that's in the postseason right now, I could see them being reasonably replaced. But I could easily bite my words at the same time with that being said. But Florida, I say they should make the playoffs. You know what? I might take that back, actually, because the 2 New York teams in that division, and then you also have to think the Devils are for sure making it, which I'll get to them in just a second. So actually, I changed my mind. I think Florida might be on the outskirts of the playoffs. The Los Angeles Kings, a team that are at the 50-game mark, were 27-17-6 with 60 points. And a team that should make the playoffs. They made it last year, obviously the last seven games to the Edmonton Oilers. But a team that I believe should get past the first round this year. Honestly, they got a really good team. You really can't go wrong with that. Anze Kopitar at center, and obviously Drew Doughty. He was probably the key factor why they didn't make it out of the first round. I guarantee if Drew Doughty was there in the playoffs last season, it may have been a different story. he's like the heartbeat of that defense. So I believe that the Kings should get into the postseason. Again, they're a really good team. There's no reason why they shouldn't. The Minnesota Wild, a team that I think we've had high expectations. Hold on a second, that's gonna move. Oh. Anyways, a team that had high expectations coming into the postseason. I believe that Fleury has had some hiccups here and there, but I mean, you can't really put a whole lot of blame on him. But maybe you can. Who knows? I'm not one to judge. But a team that should make the postseason. But again, that Western Conference is extremely tough. Both sides of the conference are extremely tough to get in. But I just believe that there's a lot more teams in the West that have a chance to get in to the postseason compared to the Eastern Conference. It's not as strong. But if I had to make my prediction right now, I'd say no. But there's still, like I said, there's still over 30 games for almost every team. So anything can happen. Like I said, they're on the outskirts right now, but they are a very good team. And we have a guy like Kaprizov who is a superstar in this league. You really can't go wrong, especially having him on your team. The Habs, my poor Habs. I finally get to talk about them. A team that's not making the playoffs, and it heartbreaks me to say it, but it's true. They're not making the playoffs. They're a good young team moving forward. Like, they're still in a rebuild. When we lose a guy like Price, that really just kills you because he literally was the backbone of that team. He was the heartbeat of the team. He was the soul of the team. And when you lose that, you really lose your identity. Who's really the leader now? Like, can you really put that much pressure on your goalies now? With Jake Allen and Samuel Montembeault, I do believe. They still have Caden Primo in the minors, but when is he actually going to be legitimately ready? He's had a few games under his belt thus far, but he hasn't proven to me that he belongs to stay in the NHL. I mean, if anything, he could be a backup, but I don't know if I'd have him playing more than 20 games a season, to be honest with you, at this point. So, again, it breaks my heart to say this about the Habs, but I don't see them making the postseason. But moving forward, they got a good coach in Martin St. Louis. Nick Suzuki is a star. He literally, I remember watching a video, someone said he was like, you played like a veteran. And I mean, he's only in his third season or fourth season, I do believe. Yeah, 2020, 2021, 2022. Fourth season, yeah. And he's the captain of the team. And he's a captain for a reason. Like, he's a really good player. And obviously, Caulfield's a star, but now he's under the knife. So we lost him for the rest of the year. And he even said in one of his conferences, he's like, if we were in a playoff spot, I probably wouldn't have considered doing this. But I mean, if you know you're not making the postseason, you might as well get healed up. And this way you'll have a better chance in the offseason to have more strength and get more practice under your belt. So, yeah, for my Habs, a lost season. There's no question about that. Moving on to the Nashville Predators. The 50-game mark, I don't know if I said the Habs record was 20, 26, and 4 for 44 points, so I forgot about that. So getting it back to the Nashville Predators, at the 50-game mark, they were 25, 19, and 6. They're in the hunt for the postseason. They had 56 points up until that point. And, yeah, for a team that I believe had somewhat expectation to make the postseason. I mean, they made the last postseason forever. Like, when was the last time they missed it? I can't even recall, because last year they made it the year before. They made it in that crazy playoff format. They made it into the bubble, but obviously Arizona bumped them out in the first round play. Prior to that, they made it 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016. Like, I can't remember the last time they missed the playoffs. It might have been 2014, to be completely honest with you. So they've had a good run, to say the least. If they don't make the playoffs, I don't see that being the end of the world. But they're a good team, and they're just like the Minnesota Wild. They're very close to getting in. So I would not be surprised if they did make it into the postseason once again. Like I said, they got a really good team. Saros is a good goalie. Yossi is a really good captain, a really good leader. And they got a lot of talented forwards. So at Nashville, there should be high expectation to get in. But again, you're not guaranteed anything in this league. You want to talk about a team that has done a complete 180 from a season ago. The last time the New Jersey Devils made the postseason was in the 2017-2018 season. And obviously, they had Taylor Hall, and he won a trophy that year. But they've been having nothing but poor season after poor season. Obviously, 2019 through 2022, which was just last year, they haven't been able to get back in the big dance. But this year, they 100% are. Like I said, even though there's still like 30 games for a lot of these teams to play, they're a shoo-in to make the postseason. The only way they would be able to not make it is if they literally lost their last 20 some odd games. And I don't see that happening. They're a really good team. So the Devils, high expectations, and heck, they can even surprise us in the playoffs. Don't even consider not favor them. They're a really good team. So yeah, Devils, complete 180. And if you're a fan of the team, you must be in seventh heaven. The Islanders are competing for a playoff spot at the 50-game mark. They were sitting at 23, 22, and 5, which wasn't looking too good. I'm very much aware that they're at a different mark right now. But even at that point in the season, I still wouldn't have counted them out. And obviously getting the trade with Horvat, like which I will discuss in further trade videos, that was a huge piece that they added to their core. Obviously giving up Bavilla was probably a bit of a sting because he's a really good player too. He's definitely a top 6 forward, no question about that. But I mean, they should compete for a playoff spot. I don't see why not. I think they're only a point behind the Penguins right now, if I'm not mistaken. So they're right there on the cusp. They should make the playoffs. But as like I said, just with any conference, it's going to be tough to get in because you have so many other teams behind you and so many other teams ahead of you that you got to catch. So it'll be tough to finish out the year, but they should compete for a playoff spot, to say the least. The Rangers, a team just like the Devils, should be a shoo-in to make the postseason. I can't see them not making it. They're just such a good team, and they're red hot, to say the least. At the 50-game mark, they were 28, 14, and 8. A team that, well, they made it in 2018. In 2019, I think they missed the postseason. And then 2020, in the bubble, they got in, but then they lost to who did they lose to? I think they lost to Carolina in the play-in round. In 2021, they obviously didn't make it. They made it last year. They made it to the conference final last year. Game 6 of the conference final against the Tampa Bay Lightning, where obviously things went sour. So I believe they're a very good team. They should make the postseason this year. Like I said, the only way they would miss out is if they literally lost all the rest of their games. They're just that far away in the standings from like teams like Washington and Pittsburgh to catch up. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play the rest of the year. But obviously the big thing for the Rangers, and if you're a Rangers fan, you're going to love that, the trade for Tarasenko. My goodness, I didn't see that coming because I thought St. Louis was just like, well, I mean, we don't want to get rid of him because we're technically not eliminated, but I'll get into St. Louis here pretty quick. But yeah, for a team that got Tarasenko, it's got like, we have so much talent on this team that it'd be crazy not for us to make another run. And they got a good goalie in Shesterkin. You really can't go wrong with a goaltender like him. He's definitely number one in this league for a reason, and he's on the right team. The Senators, a team at the 50-game mark, were 24, 23, and 3 with 51 points. Another team that's up and coming. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get back into the postseason. Obviously, the last time they made it was in 2017. And if you're a Sens fan, you probably don't want to hear Game 7. But it went to the double overtime, and then it could have went their way as well. They could have easily scored and made it to the Stanley Cup final, which would have been an incredible story. But ever since then, the team has just absolutely imploded. Traded away a lot of their veteran guys. Obviously, Erik Karlsson's probably the biggest one that they had to give away. And just a lot of down years, to say the least. And then, like I said, the last time they made it was 2017. So this should be at least the 6th year in a row, if I'm not mistaken, that they will miss the playoffs. But they're close. Like I said, in the next couple of years, they should easily compete for a wild card spot. But they just don't have it. They just don't have it this year. Not to disrespect them, like I said, not to disrespect any team that I'm talking about negatively, but it's just the truth. They're close, but they're just not there. The Flyers, they started the season off really horrible. Everyone thought they'd probably be in the basement of that division, but they seem to have gotten their you-know-what together, but it just seems like it's a little too late. At the 50-game mark, they were 20, 21, and 9 with 51 points. Obviously, they're close with Ottawa in the standings, so I don't see the Flyers making the postseason again. And it's a shame because they got a good team, but it's just inconsistent play. I'm not sure what it is, but they just have not been themselves. And it was so funny that up until I think the 2020 when they went into the bubble, they were in the playoff spot up until that in the standings before that whole bubble action happened. But it seemed like every second year they kept making it. So it was like 2021, oh, they're not going to make it. Last year, oh, well, maybe they'll make it because it's an even year. They didn't make it. Now it's an odd year, so obviously you're not going to make it. No, I'm just kidding. But no, like I said, they got a little ways to go, but they should get back into the playoffs. To have them out at the playoffs this for 3 years in a row, it's absurd, especially for the city of Philadelphia. But I'm sure they're not going to be too upset, especially if their football team ends up pulling it out on the big Super Bowl win. Penguins, their arch rivals, their state rivals. At the 50-game mark, they were 25, 16, and 9, 59 points. A team that is no longer a shoo-in to get into the playoffs. At this point of the season, they're in a wild card position, so they're really fighting for their lives. Like I said, they're going to have the Islanders are breathing down their neck, and there's other teams as well, like Florida, and pretty sure there's another team that I'm forgetting. That they're close. They're right behind them. So if Pittsburgh happens to go on a 2 or 3 game losing streak, that could be the end of their season right there. So sounds crazy to say, considering, like I said, there's still 20 some odd games for each team to play. But I mean, like I said, there's no shoo-in anymore. It used to be previous past, the Pittsburgh, they'll finish second or first or third in their division easily. Now it's like they're slow, they're getting older, and they have a lot of good players on their team. They're a talented team, but I just feel like they're not as consistent as they used to be. And I'll be talking about the Capitals here at the end of the video as well, that there's no longer guaranteed Pittsburgh playoffs for sure. No, it's like question mark now. So they should make the playoffs, but again, they have a lot of teams that are right behind them that are breathing down their throat. So, or neck, I do apologize. All right, next one is the San Jose Sharks, a team that is definitely on the downward spiral of things. Obviously, the last time they had playoffs or success in the playoffs was in 2019 when they went to the Western Conference Final of Game 6. I remember following them because my first thought was if they could get back in the Stanley Cup Finals, they could maybe get that ring, which obviously every player chases. And it would have been so incredibly epic to have the Sharks and Bruins final. No disrespect to the Blues, but that would have been obviously Joe Thornton playing against the team that drafted him. So imagine him going head-to-head against his former team in the final, but it wasn't meant to be. So yeah, they're in a rebuild to say the least. Obviously, the big thing is going to find someone to take over, help out with taking some of Carlson's money out of their hands because he's a big trade bait, to say the least. But yeah, like I said, when you get into this funk, you know what you got to do. You got to trade veteran guys away, guys that are talented away, just to try and get some draft picks and something in return. Maybe even some prospects too. Who knows? So yeah, for the Sharks, they're not making the playoffs. Again, that division's really tough. 14, 25, and 11 was the record at the 50-game mark with 39 points. So you're not going to be getting the postseason when you're below 500. Now you want to talk about a team in their second year that is making a whole lot of noise, and that's over in Seattle. 52. Hold on a second. Sorry, 29, 16, and 5 was the record at the 50-game mark. I do apologize for that. But a team that's going to make the playoffs, there's no question about it. For a team that, whenever you get a bunch of guys that don't know each other, you don't develop in the minor leagues or in the AHL, I guess you could say. You're all meeting. You're all just one group of guys just showing up to this one place, and you're all going to try to get along and work together. So obviously last year there was some growing pains for Seattle because everyone was new. Like I said, it's not like you had 2 or 3 buddies from one team and you'd all be on this new team together. Like I said, you're all complete strangers. You left your comfort zone to go to a new city with a new team. And obviously, like I said, last year they showed their true colors because there wasn't as much consistency. Now, holy cow, are they playing out of their minds? And obviously, my biggest thing was I didn't think the team was talented enough to compete for a playoff spot, let alone be in the top 3. But my first thought when they first got Grubauer, I'm like, what is Colorado thinking? They're a good team. They're giving up this really good goaltender. And obviously last year, Grubauer didn't have that great of a season. So my first thought was, holy cow, this could be him just bottoming out of his career. Going on to a new city, a new team that has absolutely no expectations at all to go and do a complete 180 from last year to this year is absolutely absurd. And I just love the fact that this team could be in the playoffs. And I guarantee they should be in the playoffs. As long as you're in the top 3 right now, I believe after the 50-game mark, if you're in the top 3 right now, you should compete for the top 3 spot once the season's end. That's just my opinion. So kudos to the Kraken for getting in the postseason. Not to try and curse them, but they should get in the playoffs. The Blues, a team that, holy cow. Well, obviously, as I said in the previous, when I was talking about the Rangers, they obviously traded for Tarasenko. At the 50-game mark, they were 23, 24, and 3, 49 points. They're barely hanging on to a playoff spot. So that's why there's always these rumors and speculations that Ryan O'Reilly might be going next. And imagine trading away your captain after he was just named last season or the season before. So it's pretty hard to believe that could potentially happen. But they're just not the team that they were back in 2019. Even in 2020, they were a competitive team, but they just couldn't get over the hump. And obviously, they've made the playoffs, but I just don't think they're the same team they used to be. Granted, they get now though with me saying that they obviously made the playoffs back in last year in the second round. But again, I just don't think they have it in them. Now I could very well bite my tongue, and by the end of the year, they could be in a playoff spot or in a wild card spot. So, like I said, I could easily take back what I say, but I don't think they're making the playoffs this year, which is a shame to say because they're a good team. But like I said, just everyone's moving on. It seems to be, and if O'Reilly moves, it'll be a whole other overhaul is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it's crazy to think that St. Louis was so competitive for so long, and now it seems like the wheels are falling off. But like I said, you're not always guaranteed to get into the playoffs. Tampa Bay Lightning are looking to get back in the postseason, and they should. After the 50-game mark, they were 33, 15, and 2 with 68 points. obviously they're a very talented team, but they just haven't seemed like themselves this year, to be honest with you. I mean, they've obviously lost guys, free agency, etc. But I just feel like this team, I don't know how much faith I really have. Now, like I said, I could bite my tongue on this one, and by the end of the season, I could win the cup again. Who knows? But I just feel like they're just not the same team. I'm not sure what it is about them, but it just seems like they're getting these like blowout losses to Florida, like these unbelievable losses, which you would never see happening, especially when you have Vasilevsky, probably the best goaltender in the league, in my opinion. But it's just hard to believe, and I apologize for moving around. I just can't sit in one spot for this long. I didn't think the video was going to take this long to go over. But there we go. This is better. If I block the TV, I apologize. But yeah, so getting back to the Tampa Bay, I just feel that they're a good team. And like I said, they could surprise me. They could easily knock off the Leafs, which are most likely going to play in the first round. But I just don't know if I have as much faith in them this year as I had in years past. Now, speaking of the Leafs, a team they will most likely be facing in the first round. At the 50-game mark, they were 30-12-8 with 68 points. They're playing unbelievable. And I was coming from a Habs fan. Again, got to swallow a little bit of pride from time to time. A really good team. And as I said previously, if they happen to take on Tampa Bay in the first round, which most likely will happen, I wouldn't be surprised if they knocked them off and they got into the second round, which is what they desperately need for their fan base because there's always that joke around 2004 or so. Yeah, so for the Leafs, like I said, they should make the playoffs. They got a really good team. And who would have guessed that they'd be doing it without Jack Campbell? It seemed like they needed Jack Campbell or Freddie Anderson, but like those guys can never get them out of the first round. Now they got Samsonov and Murray and whoever else they have in net, and they're playing out better than they had with, like I said, the other two goalies. So whoever did the decision making when it came to that, whether it's Dubas, whoever it was, they must have known something or did a little bit of research on the goaltenders they were acquiring. So for the Vancouver Canucks, a season that they probably want to forget, definitely not making the playoffs. Again, that Pacific Division is just so tough. At the 50-game mark, they were 20-26-4 with 44 points. They just obviously traded Horvat to the Islanders, so that was basically them saying, okay, the season's pretty much over, and we'll have to move on to next season. But it's just a shame because they have a lot of good players. They got Patterson, obviously. They got Miller and Hughes. They're on the team, so they have good youth, but they just haven't been able to really have that great of a team. The only time they made the playoffs was in the 2020 bubble, and I'm not even sure if they were in a playoff spot when the season quit. They may have been, but they may not have been as well. So, I mean, for a team that, like I said, they made it to the postseason, they got through the bubble, they got to the second round, they got to Game 7 against the Vegas Golden Knights. They could have knocked them off and been in the conference finals. So they were close. So obviously 2021, they didn't make it when they played the All-Canadian division. They didn't make it last year. And it was looking like three straight years for the Canucks that they're going to be missing the postseason. So it's a shame. They're a good team, but again, inconsistency. Vegas Golden Knights. Now, for myself, I guarantee at the start of the season, I didn't think they had a chance at heck to be in the playoffs, especially after they struggled last year. But obviously, injuries played a major factor. And with any team, any good team, you get the injury bug, it'll catch up to you. So you're not always guaranteed to be consistent or be a favorite when a certain guy goes down or when several guys go down for that matter. So they've had a complete 180. And the fact that they've done it without Robert Leonard is just outstanding. I can't believe how much how well they're doing without him. So they obviously have good young goaltending, to say the least. And obviously when you have a guy like Jack Eichel on the team, you really can't go wrong. A healthy Mark Stone, that also helps. So they were 28, 18, and 3 with 63 points at the 50-game mark. They should make the playoffs, again, just like Seattle, unless they have a complete absolute meltdown and collapse and lose all the rest of their games. They're in the postseason. There's no question about that. The Washington Capitals at the 50-game mark were 25, 19, and 6 with 56 points. Just like the Pittsburgh Penguins, any years past, they'd be a shoo-in to get in the playoffs because they were such a competitive team and they always had a good roster. But it seems like they're just barely making it now. And even though they have Kemper and he is obviously the defending Stanley Cup champion goaltender with the Avalanche, I just don't know how much faith I have. They should technically get it in, but just like I said with the Pittsburgh Penguin video or the Pittsburgh Penguin review, they're just so close with the Islanders behind them in points that it's just hard to believe that we'd have to say, well, maybe they squeeze in. I never thought would happen because as long as you have the second best player when it comes to goals with Ovechkin on your team, you think they should make the playoffs easily. They should be in the top 3 spot. But that Metropolitan Division is tough. And I can tell you that the top three for the shoe-in in that division are Carolina, the Rangers, and oh my God, I just said them too before. The Devils. Probably going to be Carolina, the Devils, and Rangers are like shoo-ins to be in that top three. Again, unless those teams go on a huge losing streak or a really real cold streak, I don't see either Washington or Pittsburgh or the Islanders to catch up, because I believe they're all like 10 points behind at this point in the season. And it's tough to catch up when you're that many points behind a certain team. So for Washington, they're a maybe, but again, they should with the talent they have. And obviously when they went and got Kemper, they believed he could be the one that would get them back over the edge. Obviously, they had to cut back in 2018, but I'm sure Ovechkin and the fellows and all of his fellow teammates would love to get a second ring for that organization. All right, we finally come to the end of the video. We're at Winnipeg. I'm sure you guys are probably sick of me now, if you've even stuck around this long. At the 50-game mark, they were 31-18-1 with 63 points. A team that last year managed to completely flop. And I think I call a lot of people by surprise, including myself, because obviously they made it in 2021, 2020, 19, 18. The last time they missed the playoffs was the 2016-2017 season. So the fact that they're going to be able to be back into the playoffs, I'm sure is going to be a huge, huge thing for them. I'm trying to think when it comes to that division and the wild card spot, but I'm pretty sure if I had to make my guess or make a bet, they should finish in the top three. Obviously, they're competing with Dallas for that division title. And like I said many times, I'm going to sound like a broken record, that every team has 20 plus games still to go in the season. So anything can happen at any given night. So this is my review. I'm finally done. After the 50-game mark, I do want to thank everyone for following me, and for those that actually stuck around to watch this entire video, I do thank you. I'm not sure how the quality turns out because obviously I have no control of the camera. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed. Until next time, take care.